Procurement in the Summer Food Service Program. This presentation should prepare you to craft forecasting efforts regarding procurement, identify methods of procurement available in the Summer Food Service Program, identify documents to be retained, and understand and apply procurement ethics. Forecasting the procurement of food is a process that includes the menu, how to estimate the number of meals to be prepared, reviewing inventory on hand, and determining what needs to be purchased. It is the process of analyzing current and historical data to determine procurement needs. As a sponsoring organization, are you planning to prepare meals? Or will you be vending meals to others? Or will you be reaching out to other organizations to purchase meals? Generally, sponsors have begun to research communities they hope to serve to determine an estimate of the number of children in that community. They're also thinking about and developing menus for the summer feeding program. Those looking for a vendor, the simplest approach is to reach out to a local school system and ask if they would be interested in vending meals to you for your summer food service program. Entering into a contract with the school food authority is simple. There is no bid requirement, and we have a contract template that you may use. In addition, you need to research the cost of your meals. School systems, if they do vend to summer food service program sponsors, they cannot lose money on the program. So do some research and find out what the plate cost, an approximation of what the plate cost will be. School systems will sometimes vend from their National School Lunch Program to their summer feeding program, and that's called a plate cost allocation. We do have a training presentation on our website that will explain how that process should be completed. Once you have determined if you're operating as a self-prep sponsor or a catered sponsor and established an estimated cost for items and meals needed, you can then determine what method of procurement will work for you. The Office of Budget and Management updated the purchasing thresholds effective October 1st of 2025. Public entities must follow the more restrictive Alabama purchasing law. Non-governmental entities will follow their own thresholds if they are more restrictive than the federal government. For the purpose of this presentation, I will review the old thresholds. Micro-purchases are when the aggregate amount of the procurement transaction does not exceed $10,000. Routine purchases cannot be broken into smaller purchase amounts to qualify for micro-purchasing. Micro-purchases may be awarded without soliciting competitive price or rate quotes if the sponsor considers the price to be reasonable based on research or experience or purchase history. To the maximum extent possible, sponsors should distribute micro-purchases equitably among qualified suppliers. Simplified acquisitions are used when the aggregate dollar amount of the procurement transaction is higher than the micro-purchase threshold but does not exceed $40,000 for Alabama public school sponsors and $250,000 for all other sponsors. When simplified acquisitions are used, price or quote rates must be obtained from an adequate number of qualified sources. We recommend at least 2. When obtaining quotes, each potential vendor must receive the same set of criteria on which to base their quote. These requests must be documented, and this documentation kept on file. The vendor with the lowest quote is used for the purchase or awarded contract. All requests for quotes, all responses received, all resulting contracts, and all invoices or receipts must be kept on file and made available upon request. Although quotes may be received over the phone, in writing, or even face-to-face, sponsors should document all quotes received. If you do not have a chart or spreadsheet to capture this information, this slide depicts a very good way to document interactions with potential vendors. Notice the contact information is included, the dates are all around the same time, and the quotes are for the same purchase amount. Pay attention to the units being quoted. If you get a quote from a vendor, for instance, for a case of eggs, and then another for a dozen, then you'll have to ask how many eggs are in a case so that you can compare the price per dozen or price per egg. An invitation for bid is used when the primary consideration of the award is cost. The expectation is that the competitive bids will be received, and acceptance will be made to the responsive and responsible vendor, and that the bid will be publicly opened. By responsive, it means that the bidder addresses all of the terms and conditions of the bid. A responsible bidder is capable of providing the product and or service outlined in the invitation for bid. An invitation for bid is used when there is no substantive difference among the products or services requested, but the key difference among them is price. The invitation for bid must be publicly advertised and opened, with the lowest responsive and responsible bidder receiving the award. Bids must be solicited from an adequate number of known suppliers. The organization letting the bid must provide those suppliers with sufficient time to respond prior to the date set for the bid opening. All invitation for bid, all responses received, all resulting contracts, and all invoices or receipts must be kept on file and made available upon request. The state agency shall have a representative present at all food service management procurement bid openings when sponsors are expected to receive more than $100,000 in program payments. The RFP is used when the sponsor wants to solicit a technical proposal that explains how the prospective vendor will meet the objectives of the solicitation. RFPs must be publicly advertised. An RFP is used when price, while still the major consideration, is not the only criteria considered among proposals for products or services that meet the specifications. An RFP allows for negotiations and evaluation criteria to obtain the best value for the cost. The most responsive and responsible vendor with the highest score wins the award. All RFPs, all responses received, all resulting contracts, and all invoices or receipts must be kept on file and made available upon request. The procurement plan. All SFSP sponsors must have written procurement procedures. Written procurement procedures are required for each sponsor. The plan should be a blueprint for all purchasing for your program, including food, supplies, equipment, farm-to-school initiatives, services, etc. The methods of procurement you use, how you solicit, how you award, and any other factors that play into the fair, open and competitive procurement of goods and services must be documented in your procurement plan. Each plan must incorporate federal, state, and local statutes and must address all methods of purchasing that the sponsor will use. Your procurement plan should prohibit the acquisition of unnecessary or duplicate items. State that clear and accurate descriptions of goods and services being procured or incorporated into the solicitation. It should also ensure small, minority, and women business enterprises and labor surplus firms are used when possible. It should adhere to all regulatory acts required by the federal government, including the Byrd Anti-Lobbying Act, Civil Rights Discrimination Statements, Copeland Anti-Kickback Act, to name a few. The Code of Conduct. You must have a written code of conduct in your procurement plan, and it will govern the ethical conduct and action of employees engaged in the selection, award, and administration of the contracts. It may be incorporated into your written plan, your written procurement plan. There are 3 required components for a written code of conduct. Conflict of interest. You must have internal controls in place to ensure the sponsor does not procure contracts from an individual, agency, or company that is affiliated with, associated with, partnered with, or has a subsidiary relationship with the individual or agency acting on behalf of the Summer Food Service Program sponsor. Disciplinary action is what actions will employees face if they breach the code of conduct. Those actions need to be clearly identified in your procurement plan, and your employees should be aware of them. Gratuities, favors, and gifts. What are your rules for governing freebies? SFSP employees should not receive incentives, gratuities, or kickbacks to take a financial action or procure an item or service. This includes but not limited to personal gifts, gratuities, or personal purchases off of a SFSP procured contract. These benefits or incentives may influence the purchasing process. Your procurement plan should address whether staff is allowed to accept gifts of nominal value. If allowed, include what that value is. The basic principles in procurement for our programs are that they must be fair, open, and competitive. Fair means you cannot restrict specifications or requirements in a procurement that bias the award in favor of one vendor over another, or make it so restrictive that only one known vendor can meet the requirements. Open is every company that can and wants to be a supplier to your program must have an equal opportunity to do so. In soliciting responses for each type of procurement, you must cast a wide net to ensure all potential vendors are aware of your pending procurement activities and be allowed to respond. Also, every step along the way must be transparent. Competitive. You can't place requirements on a solicitation that favors any one company, and the criteria of the award must be objective. Depicted on this slide is a snip of the checklist on the Link Online application. We have asked Link to remove the procurement plan from the site application and only allow for upload on the sponsor level application. We also ask that returning sponsors not be required to submit a procurement plan every year. We only want those plans if there are changes from the previous year. These are enhancement requests that we've asked Link to do, and hopefully they will be implemented for summer 2026. And if you have questions, please send them to us at sun, S-U-N, at alsde.edu or call 334-694-4660.